Hey everyone, how you doing? Welcome back to Honest About the Irish, brought to you by yours truly, B-Man is mad. So Notre Dame improves to 6-1 over the Southern California Trojans by the final score of 31-16. So this was a week after Notre Dame's bye week, a much needed bye week, and I will say that I was impressed. And listen, I know it's not the USC of the early 2000s and mid 2000s. I know it's not the great USC teams of the late 80s or the 60s, but Notre Dame played much better than they have all year. I feel like this was their best game of the year. Their offensive line played much better. Jack Cohen looked like Ian Book out there. Mike Tirico and Drew Brees made references to it all game that this is a different team. The up-tempo offense really made a difference. Jack Cohen threw to 8 different receivers. Earlier in the year, I was complaining about that they need to get to more receivers. They need to target Michael Mayer more. But this game, Notre Dame with the up-tempo offense, Tommy Rees, Brian Kelly with the new style of offense, something like you kind of saw last year, which led to success with Brian Kelly, or excuse me, not Brian Kelly, Ian Book as a quarterback. But that's what it looked like. You're targeting 8 different receivers, including Michael Mayer. A little bit of a scare with Kyle Hamilton with the damaged knee. It doesn't look like anything structural. Brian Kelly had mentioned that in his press conference, so that's good. So it's day to day with him. We'll see how he is on Saturday when they play North Carolina. And Kyrie Williams, 25 carries, 138 yards, a couple touchdowns. Looked really well. Looked like he did last year. So maybe this new up-tempo type of offense is going to be the difference for Notre Dame. Maybe they'll continue with this and have some success throughout the year. But there was a couple of things I noticed about Southern Cal that really bothered me and scratched my head, and I will get into that right now. And I feel like USC, the reason why they are 3-4 right now, part of the reason that is because of poor clock management all year, dumb decisions, penalties. USC left some points off the board. Notre Dame could not stop that London receiver, from USC. He had over 150 yards receiving, and he was unstoppable for Notre Dame. Notre Dame couldn't even tackle him, but he could have been the big difference of the game for USC, and it could have been a different outcome, I should say, for USC if they were smarter with the clock management. They left at least a touchdown or 3 points off that scoreboard going into halftime. Drew Brees torched USC for this right before halftime when they were out of timeouts. There was about 7 seconds left. They didn't even throw the ball down the field to one of their best players in London, and maybe they could have caught a touchdown. You never know, or they could at least settle for a field goal by running out of bounds with about 2 or 3 seconds left. Instead, they didn't even spike the ball. They didn't even have enough time to get the ball off. There was 3 seconds left until they got to the line, and to me, at least 3 points. The game could have been a little bit closer. USC had a little bit of a turnaround there in the second half when they got it down to a one-score game after missing the extra point. Notre Dame had turned the ball over. Cohen threw that interception. But other than that did not happen. Notre Dame played very well. It seemed like Notre Dame always answered the call, always scored right back right after USC did, and that's something we haven't seen all year. When USC got down to 1 score there, I was like, here we go again. Notre Dame's going to shoot themselves in the foot. Brian Kelly, Tommy Rees are going to go 3 and out, something we've seen all year. But Notre Dame always seemed to bounce back and get a touchdown by either Kyron Williams or the receivers, making a big difference on those big drives. Notre Dame's last scoring drive was nine plays, 75 yards in almost 4 minutes. I took a lot of time off that clock and really cemented the game for Notre Dame. So the last scoring drive for Notre Dame made the big difference when they went back up by 2 scores when it was 31-16. Feel like Notre Dame could have scored some more points. It could have scored another touchdown there. And made it 31-16, which to me would have been much better, a much more attractive score. They had plenty of time; they had over 2 minutes, but Brian Kelly decided to be respectful down the ball and win the game and go ahead and win the game 31-16. But there's a lot of things that I liked, and I just criticized USC for the poor clock management. But another thing I must say is that this officiating for college football the last couple of years has been terrible. I don't care if it's from the Pac-12. I don't care if it's from the Big Ten. I don't care if it's from the Big East. I don't care if it's from anywhere, even if it's Mountain West conference refs. The officiating has been terrible in college football. It seems like every play is a review. I mean, it just seems like every play that needs to be reviewed isn't reviewed, and every play that is reviewed shouldn't be reviewed. For instance, Drew Brees caught it right away, and so did and Mike Tirico. Is when Austin Jr. caught the ball, and Steele from USC were fighting over it, and they gave the interception to Steele, but actually Austin Jr. should have been rewarded the ball and, received the ball, and Notre Dame should have had a 1st and 10 situation. Instead, USC had the interception, because when they both landed, Austin Jr. had possession of the ball, and then it was ripped away by Steele of USC, and that was something that was not caught right away. That even the NBC replay analyst had mentioned that should have been Notre Dame's possession. Now, stuff like that is not reviewed, but it seems like every touchdown, even if you're like 10 yards into the end zone, which is a touchdown. The size of a touchdown is 10 yards, 30 yards width, and 10 yards, inward, and they'll review that, which is ridiculous. But anything else that's close and that should be reviewed, they don't do that. And some officiating across the college football landscape has been pretty bad this year, but you know what? It didn't affect Notre Dame too negatively. Notre Dame won the game. It wasn't a bad outcome of the game, which caused Notre Dame to lose, but they did win 31-16. That's all that matters. And Notre Dame does improve to 6-1. But some things I'd like to see cleaned up is on the defense. Notre Dame got burnt by that London out of USC, that great receiver. They have one of the best receivers in the Pac-10 conference. It seems like there was a lot of missed tackling. Notre Dame got torched in the secondary, gave up a few big plays, which gave USC into goal line territory, red zone territory, and that's something that Notre Dame needs to work on in defense. I will give them some criticism there, but overall, the offense finally exploded. Jack Cohen finally had that game where he can relax, where he can actually build some confidence off of, because that offensive line played much better. There were a couple sacks, but it wasn't nowhere as bad as it been at the beginning of the year, where he was sacked at least 12 times in the first 4 games, which is, terrible. You can't have that. So hopefully this is some confidence builder for Notre Dame as they head up, into South Bend this weekend against North Carolina, a game that I will be at, of course, and I will get into that at the end of the segment. But yeah, I'm very excited. Things look to be much better. They needed that week off. Hopefully they build on this, and Jack Cohen continues to get some confidence because he needed. Tyler Buchner did go in there for a couple plays, made some good passes and some good run plays in the goal line there. He's a difference maker. I just still don't understand why Drew Pine isn't being played. I don't know if Brian Kelly likes him in the system or not. That's pretty interesting. It's not really a 3 quarterback tier system here at Notre Dame. It's between, of course, Jack Cohen, who played most of the game, and then Tyler Buchner gets in there for a couple plays, design quarterback plays, the read options, stuff like that. So we'll see how this weekend goes. We'll see how they play against North Carolina. Now, there's something I want to get into that everybody talks about, and that is everyone says that Notre Dame and USC is one of the biggest rivalries in college football. I don't see that, and I'm not downplaying the rivalry. It is a rivalry, but I don't see it as a massive rivalry for Notre Dame or Southern Cal. It might be a bigger rivalry for Southern Cal than it is for Notre Dame, but to me, as a fan, as a huge Notre Dame fan, the biggest rivalry to me is Michigan. I hate Michigan. I hate it when Notre Dame loses to Michigan. I hate it when Michigan's undefeated, which they are now. And by the way, Michigan's very overrated. They haven't played anybody. They'll lose a couple games. We've seen the same story year after year. But when Notre Dame plays Michigan, I am nervous the week going up to the game. During and after the game, I'm nervous. If Notre Dame's up by 4 touchdowns, which isn't very often, it's only happened a couple times where Notre Dame has won by 3 or more touchdowns in my lifetime. I'm still a little nervous that Michigan could come back. But when that clock finally hits 0 in the 4th quarter and Notre Dame wins, it's a relief. I'm happy, but when it's the other way around, it ruins my week because I cannot stand Michigan. Kind of sucks that Notre Dame and Michigan don't play each other until 2031, I believe. And I wish they played them now. I think that it's great for college football. I think it's great for me as a Notre Dame fan. I think it's great for any college football fan when Notre Dame and Michigan play. But to me, that is the greatest rivalry for Notre Dame because everybody says, that Notre Dame's overrated. They're not what they used to be. But Michigan, I know I sound like a broken record, folks. I've said this 100 times. Michigan is in the same boat with Notre Dame. Michigan is actually more overrated than Notre Dame, if you ask me. You look at Bo Schembechler's bowl record. You look at Bo Schembechler's Rose Bowl record. He wasn't very successful. He was a good regular season coach, but that's about it. The same thing with Brian Kelly. People say, well, yeah, he's a great, regular season coach, but has he won a national championship? No, he hasn't. But again, he's in the same boat with Bo Schembechler, who to me is one of the most overrated football coaches. And a lot of people are going to say, well, you're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know anything about football. No, look at his bowl record where it really matters. Okay. Bo Schembechler sucked in the Rose Bowl. Bo Schembechler sucked when it came to the bowl season, the off season, as they call it, or excuse me, the postseason. And it's hatred for Michigan that I have. And Michigan, I hope Michigan State blows them out by 3 touchdowns this weekend, but I think it's a bigger rivalry than USC when Notre Dame plays Michigan, to me at least. Throughout the late 80s and 90s, that was the one game I always looked forward to. People ask me, what would you rather have, Notre Dame go undefeated and win a national championship, or beat Michigan and go 1-11? If Notre Dame can win a national championship while beating Michigan, that's great. But you know what? I would not want to see Notre Dame lose a game and still win a national championship, and that one loss beat Michigan. I'd rather have Notre Dame go 1-11, not win a national championship, but the only team that they beat on their schedule that year is Michigan, because that's how much I hate Michigan. And listen, folks, nobody cares about Michigan outside of Ann Arbor. Okay, you talk about Notre Dame, people know who Notre Dame is. You talk about Michigan, people's like, yeah, the state, their fans think there are a Lexus. Okay, they're not. All right, Michigan is a Toyota Camry. All right, in the state of Michigan, they all think they're Lexus, but in Michigan, no, folks, we're not going to waste our time on Michigan football here. This is all about Notre Dame. But I'm just giving you a good feeling about what the biggest rivalry for me is. So pissed off when they lose to Michigan, very happy when they beat Michigan. But unfortunately, that won't be until 2031 unless some things change here. If Notre Dame can play Michigan much sooner, maybe they'll change the schedule. They've done it before. So hopefully that happens, because I'd like to see Notre Dame beat Michigan, and I'd like to see Notre Dame extremely beat up on Michigan and play them. So that is pretty much it for today, folks. I hope you join me next weekend when I'm at South Bend for the Notre Dame North Carolina game. I've got some tailgating options. I've got some hamburgers. I've got some bratwurst. What is your favorite side dish? I'm thinking of making some sort of queso dip. Of course, I won't make it. Someone else will make it for me because my cooking skills are terrible. And no, don't worry. It won't be a Michigan fan who will be making my food for me, or the dip at least, because they'll poison it after watching this video. That's if they even know who I am. But comment below on the comments, what's your favorite tailgating side dish? What do you bring when you tailgate? Do you bring chili? Do you bring queso dip? Do you bring shish kebabs? Do you like steak, hamburgers, hot dogs, bratwurst, chili dogs, taco dip, anything that you like? Hit it on down below in the comments, and we'll talk to you guys later on next week. And of course, go Irish, and everyone stay safe.